And tonight we are nearing the end of what was one of the single worst days of Biden's presidency so far. Now, after 357 other terrible days, that is saying a lot. Breaking this afternoon, a 6-3 decision. As we predicted, the U.S. Supreme Court, they blocked Biden's vaccine mandate on private businesses just 3 days after it went into effect. And while the court did uphold an HHS requirement for hospital workers, of course, that's Medicare, Medicaid, federal money, the federal mandate on private businesses is no more. It is a massive win for freedom, for private businesses, for medical privacy, and so much more. We'll have a lot more coming up on it tonight. Biden's bad day did not stop there. At 1 p.m., he wandered over to the Capitol in a desperate attempt to persuade his former colleagues in the Senate to end the filibuster once and for all, something he has been opposed to his entire career up until now. Now he wants the power grab. Just before he arrived, however, Democratic Senator from Arizona, Kristen Sinema, bravely, frankly, delivered a speech on the Senate floor, completely rejecting Joe's demands. A short time later, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin echoed her remarks, stating, quote, "As I have said many times before, I will not vote to eliminate or weaken the filibuster." In other words, Joe's field trip was pointless even before he stepped foot on Capitol Hill. Now, this is a level, frankly, of public humiliation that's kind of hard to watch. Now, needless to say, Joey was not happy. He needed some ice cream, perhaps. Take a look.
One thing for certain, like every other major civil rights bill that came along, if we missed the first time, we can come back and try it a second time. We missed this time. We missed this time. And the state legislative bodies continue to change the law, not as to who can vote, but who gets to count the vote. Count the vote. Count the vote. It's about election subversion, not just whether or not people get to vote. Who counts the vote?
All right, but anyway, ironically, his state of Delaware, where he served 575,000 years, he never once tried to make voting more accessible, and they have some of the most restrictive voting laws in Delaware. He never lifted a finger. And by the way, we are at the point where we do need to seriously ask, frankly, is Joe Biden okay? He doesn't look okay. He doesn't act okay. He looks like a shell of his former self. He looks like he's deteriorating before our very eyes, both mentally and physically. And frankly, the people around him are not doing him any favors, covering all of this up and hiding him. He's confused. He has memory loss, weird outbursts of anger, quite a lot of difficulty finding words. The thing, you know, the thing. He has trouble walking. Those are symptoms of someone who is not doing well. Where are the people in his life that care about him and love him? And as for the filibuster, the Senate rule that Joe referred to as a racist relic of Jim Crow, well, today Democrats, they used the very same filibuster to kill a bill from Ted Cruz that would put sanctions on Russia. Now, if there was ever a moment in time that perfectly encapsulated the Democrats' bewildering level of hypocrisy, that's it. By the way, as a side note, they used the filibuster over 300 times last year. Now, a few hours earlier, back at the White House, Joey was in his happy place, a weird fake Oval Office set. This is bizarre. He has a real Oval Office, but he goes to the Oval Office set, where he loves to give speeches from a miniature Oval Office desk. And today's speech was supposed to be about his big plan to battle Omicron, the variant, which has been ripping through this country for weeks. Record numbers of COVID-positive cases, unlike anything we've seen. Unfortunately, Joe had a lot of trouble communicating that plan to you, the American people. We'll let you decide. Take a look.
Now, I don't like to, outline the next steps we're taking against. I'd like to outline the next steps we're taking against the Omicron variant, and to help lead our federal testing program. I've tapped Dr. Tom. I hope I pronounced it Inglesby. Correct, Is that right, Jeff?
Oh, sorry, just acting like Joe. Needless to say, still a lot of questions about Biden's COVID-19 disaster. But today, like almost every day, Joe could not be bothered to answer any of these questions. Take a look.
Thank you for taking the time.
Mr. President, can you have a message for vaccinated Americans who are wondering why they should continue to restrict their activities, given that your health officials say most Americans will get COVID at some point?
Folks, we'll talk about that later. Come on. Let's go.
He usually says, but they won't let me. I'm not allowed to get in trouble every time I take a question. Anyway, a year ago, for a full year, 2020, Joe was bragging he shut down that virus. He didn't. He said not having enough tests was a travesty. He said President Trump should not remain as president because of 220,000 COVID deaths. Well, almost twice that amount died since Biden took over, with more American deaths from COVID in 2021 under his watch than 2020, when we knew next to nothing when we first got this thing. Now, Joe thinks it, by the way, he thinks it's 2020. Pathetic, but it's true. Now, a very frail-looking President Biden is unable to answer a single question about COVID-19 as this virus continues to rage throughout the entire country. We are now living what is an ultimate, sad, predictable, preventable nightmare. According to a new poll from News Nation, a large majority of Americans disapprove of Biden's handling of COVID-19. Keep in mind, even before this horrendous day for President Joe Biden, he was already polling at an all-time low. Yesterday's Quinnipiac poll had him at a 33% approval rating, with inflation at 7%. That is a 4-decade high, a 40-year high. And now his plan to eliminate the filibuster, that's dead. Build Back Broke is dead. His so-called voting rights legislation is dead. His vaccine mandate is all but dead as well, as the Supreme Court now is put their ruling forward. Things are going so poorly over at the White House that reporters and the media mob are now openly wondering if Biden and Harris will even bother running for another term. And get this, today, Kamala Harris herself, she had a disastrous interview. She couldn't even answer that simple question. You decide. Take a look.
Are we going to see the same Democratic ticket in 2024?
I'm sorry, we are thinking about today. I mean, honestly, I know why you're asking the question, because this is the part of the punditry and the gossip around places like Washington, D.C. Let me just tell you something. We're focused on the things in front of us.
Okay, that would be in front of you. Is that a no? Why are you unable to answer that question, Kamala Harris? Do you have some reason to believe that Joe Biden will not be able to run for re-election? Do you think he's not capable of being president? Do you think you're not capable of serving in the White House? Well, we'll have so much more from that train wreck interview coming up later in the program. But what's going on here? Of course, I think we all know the answer. Joe Biden is a cognitive wreck. It's more apparent than ever. Probably will not be running for re-election. Many people wondering if he can even finish the next 3 years of this term. And meanwhile, Kamala Harris is totally, completely, utterly out of her league and incompetent. Members of her own staff refer to her as a soul-destroying bully. They've been leaving in droves. They say she's too lazy to read briefing materials, and then she's lashing out at others when she's painfully unprepared. I don't know who's going to be on the Democratic ticket in 2024, but if they want any chance of winning, the DNC would be wise to kick Dumb and Dumber here to the curb. But I don't think Hillary's the answer either.